Welcome into another Wednesday edition, Froggy Wednesdays on the Stripe Show podcast. And I'm telling you, the FedEx Cup playoffs, no matter how long it takes to get it in, it is going to happen. We had a long week at the Northern Trust right outside of New York City and Jersey City. And we are joined by one of the guys that if you've watched enough golf, you always see him standing there on the 18th green. You've seen him on the Golf Channel. He's got his own nickname that was given to him by the greatest golfer of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Steve Sands. Welcome into the podcast.
I mean, it's not Froggy, but, we'll take it.
No I don't know. I mean, did Tiger give you that nickname? Is he the first guy to ever call you that, or had you been called that before?
Oh, I've been called it by, high school friends, college friends, guys I've met, through the years. But when you're the most famous athlete on the planet,
right,
and whenever you play, the most eyeballs are watching you, and I just happen to be the dope who runs out there to talk to him on the 18th green after a win, or talk to him in the scoring area after I've come down from the booth at the tower to talk to him in the scoring area after he's finished a round. And he finishes every single interview by calling you something. It's bound to stick, because that guy, he doesn't just move the needle, Froggy. He is the needle. So, all credit to him. It has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with Tiger Woods.
I definitely want to get into Tiger Talk here in the podcast, because I know you have been a part of and seen so many monumental Tiger moments. You were there for 80. You were there for 82. So I know that you've got some amazing Tiger stories. He really seems to, you can just tell when he's in an interview with somebody that he trusts, that he has a good rapport with. You can see it. And that's why he always seems much more comfortable doing an interview with you. And so we always seem to get a little bit more out of him than the one word answers, just trying to get away from somebody when you're talking to him.
Well, that's nice of you to say. It's, look, I think that the most important thing that we do for a living is have an understanding as a sportscaster that you are the conduit between the audience and the athletes / competition. And if we think that we are part of it, we're wrong. We are not part of it. It's about the athletes. It's about the competition. It's about the audience enjoying whatever they're watching, or maybe not enjoying, depending on who you're rooting for in team sports or individual sports. But, look, I've always thought that we, as whether I'm in the booth, in the tower, or especially down on the ground talking to the guys, I've always had a 100% understanding that it is about them. It's not about us. We are just clowns in the circus. And, it's great to be a part of it. It's great to be involved in it. It's great to be inside the ropes. But if you don't gain that trust from an athlete, if you don't have that comfort factor from an athlete, it's going to come across. It's going to come across whether you're just walking the range, talking to guys, walking around the golf course, trying to do your homework and do your stuff before the event goes on the air. But then on the air, Froggy, it's most notable. If a guy trusts you, you can tend to go places with him as an athlete and make him feel comfortable if you're asking a question in the correct manner, whether it's a difficult one or an easy one for that matter. Athletes want to be asked good questions. They don't want to just be thrown layups all the time. And they're extraordinary at what they do. And I always have felt that they are at their best when they're treated in an ordinary fashion, as long as they trust you. So it's a credit to them, not to me, as far as the comfort level, because if they don't let you in, especially someone in the world of Tiger Woods,
right?
If they don't let you in, Froggy, then you have no chance. It has a lot to do with you. I understand that. It's very nice of you to say those things, but if they don't have the trust from their side, then none of this is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell when Tiger talks to somebody that the people that are generally right on the top of my head that I think of are some of the best that he seems the most comfortable with are you, Roger Maltby, and Tom Rinaldi. Really seem to be able to have a relationship with him that makes him feel comfortable, and you seem to get a little bit more out of him, which is great as a viewer, because that's exactly what I want. When the round's over, I want those questions answered. I'm so interested, and I've invested hours watching this, and you're so into it that it's great to get real true answers out of him rather than just some fluff piece and you just get like a 2-word answer and it's over. But
by the way, we come at those from completely different perspectives. Roger Maltby was a tremendous player on the PGA Tour, and
Right.
has respect of all the guys out there because of all he's accomplished in the
Right.
game. Tom Rinaldi makes everybody cry just saying hello to him. So, that's a gift that he's had his whole life as one of
You're
the
in good
great
company.
writers. Well, and I'm just a sports guy, just asking questions that I think fans want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, you're in good company. So, the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs in the book, it really was a crazy week. It felt like we were never going to get that tournament finished with the storm that came in. Tour did a great job of getting that golf course ready. After 9 inches of rain, I was shocked to see how dry the golf course played on Monday for that final round.
Yeah, it was amazing. They got, I don't want to get into the agronomy part of it because I'm not an agronomist, Froggy, but, it's a sand based golf course. So they had a little bit of an advantage there. Calling play on Sunday, being able to get out there, that crew, that staff did an amazing job of getting that course prepared. And you know what? They're the best in the world. They're the best players in the world. It's the best league in the world, the best officials in the world, and the best agronomists in the world. And the staff that comes together for these events, Froggy, it's amazing what happens behind the scenes. They don't get enough credit for what takes place week in, week out. And this past week was a perfect example. And thank goodness they finished on Monday. If they would have gone into Tuesday, I think what Jay Monahan did from the PGA Tour was 100% correct. It's a FedEx Cup event. Playoff event, you've got to finish 72 holes. You can't revert back to 54 and not let these guys have a sprint to the finish. Look at what happened. It wasn't
Right.
just John Rahm getting handed a victory from 54 holes. Tony Finau and Cam Smith had to go out and earn it in a playoff. John Rahm had to hit some shots down the stretch to try to get into that playoff. So, kudos to everybody who got that thing finished. And thankfully they did, because a Tuesday finish on the PGA Tour is something that everyone wants to avoid. It spills into the next week. It gets really tricky for logistics and pro-ams and travel and the next week's sponsor and the next week's golf course, all the money they put into it. Volunteers from the Monday, Tuesday, trying to get these guys around to finish an event. So I'm happy that they were able to get that done. It was cool.
Yeah, and it was worth the wait. We finally get
Yeah.
Tony Finau gets back into the winner's circle, and some people say it's his first real PGA Tour victory. I know he won before on an off event, a B event, but to really finish the way he did, to finish in that playoff and hit amazing shots, shot 5 under on the back nine in regulation, and then goes up. And I know the pressure, but listen, he still hit the first tee shot, which he had to hit first, and then I know Cam Smith knocked it out of bounds. But it was unbelievable to see Tony get that victory. And I know you've interviewed Tony a ton of times, and it's always been, when is it going to happen? How happy are you as a guy who's seen it to see Tony Finau finally get over the hump and get what he really deserves?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with Cameron Smith, who's a wonderful guy and a tremendous player, and he's going to have a terrific career. But Tony Finau needed that win, Froggy. He needed to get across the finish line. It's one thing in professional sports, especially in golf, to get to that point. It's another to cross over that line. He has that win in Puerto Rico. Everybody understands it's a PGA Tour win. Whether you want to dictate it, not you personally, but people want to say it's a B event or
Right.
it's an alternate event, those kinds of things. That's for another discussion. Tony has put himself in a position many, many times to get a victory on the PGA Tour, and he just hadn't gotten it done other than that 1 week in Puerto Rico. He needed that win on Monday at the Northern Trust. He needed to finish an event. He needed to prove it to himself. He needed to prove it to the other guys on the PGA Tour who were his peers, and he is as nice a man as I've ever met in professional sports, doing this for 31 years. Doesn't matter what sport it is. He is a tremendous guy, Froggy, and everybody is rooting for Tony Finau. Whether you're a fan of his or not,
Right.
As a sports fan, totally different conversation. But to his peers, the people who are around the game on the periphery like we are, even the fans, they understand when they hear him speak. He couldn't be a nicer guy. Does he need to get a little nastier coming down the stretch? You could probably make that case. But it was really cool to see him win. And I hope this propels him to do the things that he's capable of doing, because he is a world-class player, not only a world-class guy. And that was a big, big win for him on Monday.
And that was my next question. Do you believe that this does propel him because you've seen it firsthand. You've talked to Tony, you know where he is. You see the other players on tour. Is this what starts the avalanche?
It's weird in sports, in golf especially. When Jason Day won the PGA at Whistling Straits, this is not a major championship. It's a FedEx Cup Playoff event, but it's a huge win for Tony. So I'm not comparing anybody's win to win. I'm just using some names. When Jason Day won the Whistling Straits in 2015, Froggy, didn't we all think he'd have one or two more by now?
Absolutely.
Dustin Thomas won the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow in 2017. Hasn't won a major since. McIlroy hasn't won one in 7 years. My point is, not comparing majors to World Golf Championship events to FedEx Cup Playoff events, but wins don't necessarily propel you forward to get more wins or even bigger wins. What I do think is that those three players I mentioned, Rory, Jason, and Justin, world-class players, they're going to be in the Hall of Fame. There's no issue there. My point with Tony is he's not going to rest on his laurels. He's not going to just stop working hard because he got a victory on Monday at Liberty National on the PGA Tour at the Northern Trust. I just think it's really hard to win. Fred Couples played almost 30 years on the PGA Tour. He has 15 career wins. Has that Masters, has 2 players. It's 15 career wins in almost 30 years playing regularly on the PGA Tour. He's in the World Golf Hall of Fame, Froggy. That's a half a win a year. It's really, really hard to win on the PGA Tour. So, yes, I think it's going to make Tony more confident coming down the stretch, knowing that he can do it, seeing himself finish and get a victory. Does that mean he's going to get more wins? Probably not. But
he's good enough to win on the PGA Tour.
Oh, man, absolutely. He will win more, but I'm not so sure that because of what happened on Monday, that's going to make him win more. But I do think confidence is always bred when there's a victory. And there's no question that Tony has to be puffing out his chest a little bit internally, not externally, but internally. He's got to feel a little bit better about himself. So, yeah, I think he's going to win more. I just don't know if it's because of what happened on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see him win, and it's also nice to see how he handled it. I saw some social media video footage. He was shaking every single groundskeeper's hand. He wanted to take a picture and shake every one of their hands and thank them personally. And, Tony could be a guy that he's heard all the talk. He's heard all the whispers about when are you going to win? Are you going to win? Do you know how to win? Can you? Are you scared? This, that, and the other. You've choked. He's heard everything.
Yep.
And when he did win, he wasn't that guy to go like, haha, look, I did it. He was as kind of a gentleman as he could ever be.
He is as nice a guy, I promise you, as you can possibly imagine. When you are uber talented like that and you reach heights that, the two of us and our audience dream of reaching, playing professional golf at the highest level, to be able to maintain your regularity, to maintain your normalness is very difficult. And Tony has managed that well, to be incredibly competitive, remain highly confident at what you're trying to do, but also remain being a really good guy and understanding that signing an autograph or taking a picture for a kid or hanging out with the staff who made it possible for you to go out there and play on Monday after a really, really long slog for those guys on the golf course to get it ready for the best players in the world to play. He's got a lot of court awareness. If he was a basketball player, he is a tremendous athlete, and he has, a cousin who plays in the NBA. But he's got a lot of court awareness, and I think everybody in the world of golf is extremely happy for Tony. But there's no doubt it's not going to change him. It's not going to make him a different person. It's just going to make him just a little bit more confident coming down the stretch that maybe some of those putts will fall instead of lipping out.
Steve, let me ask you this, and you've met, all of these gentlemen, and you've talked to them, and you've seen them play golf. Is there something to be said that maybe Tony is too nice? Does he need a little bit of that mean or jerk gene to be able to turn it on down the stretch?
I would never be one. I like nice, Froggy. I like nice guys. I like nice women. I like nice men. I like people who are kind. But at the end of the day, in sports, I don't care whether it's the gentleman's game of golf, whether it's tennis or the 4-team sports, whatever your sport may be. When you're coming down the stretch and you have a chance to win, that's the only reason we play sports.
Right.
The trophy handing out to kids these days drives me crazy. You're
Amen.
not teaching them anything. I'm not talking about in T-ball when you're 4. I'm
No.
talking about when you get into junior high school and high school. You're playing to win. And when you're a professional athlete and you're trying to do something that literally 125 people had a chance to do last week at the Northern Trust, you've got to have some sort of assassin mentality coming down the stretch, that the blinders are on and everybody else can go blank themselves because I'm trying to win a golf tournament.
Amen.
Is Tony too nice? I mean, is there such a thing as being too nice? No, not in life. In
Right.
sports, yes, there is. And
There
at
is.
some point, you need to be selfish and say, this one's mine, fellas. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to grab it with both hands, and I'm not letting go. And I think that's a learned behavior. Tiger will tell you he learned how to do that, from his father and through his competitiveness and all the experiences that he went through. So maybe it's taken Tony a little bit later in life than some, and probably he's taken a little bit later in life than he would like.
Right.
But you've got to be an assassin when you have a chance to win, because you don't have many chances at victory in this sport. You lose way more often in this sport than you win. So when you have a chance, Froggy, get after it, man. There's nothing wrong with putting the blinders on. No one's going to think you're not a good guy anymore. Go ahead and play your butt off those last 18 or 9 holes coming down the stretch and tell everybody to just get out of the way. I'm coming down Broadway and I'm grabbing the trophy right in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen it firsthand. We all know what Tiger was like back in the day, but you've seen the, as people like to call it, the kinder, gentler Tiger. But when the match is on, if you saw him Sunday at the Masters in 2019, you saw it firsthand in Atlanta. You saw it at the Zozo. He turns everybody else off, and it is all about getting a victory.
Yeah, and what's wrong with that? I mean, as a sports fan,
that's why we play. That's why they keep score. Like Tim Tebow, the nicest guy in the world, says.
Right.
They keep score because there's a winner and a loser. That's how sports is played.
That's the beauty of sports. To me, the beauty of sports is watching the best players in the world, the best athletes in the world, compete under the immense pressure that's in front of them. It doesn't matter whether it's the Northern Trust, the Masters, or week 1 in the NFL in a couple of weeks. That is some high level drama, man. And it's happening right before us, and it's happening live. So I am a big believer in go ahead and do whatever you want to do that's going to take you to the finish line to get a victory. Right. It is not going to be an indication of whether you are a nice guy or not. Jordan Spieth is the nicest guy you can possibly imagine. Tony Finau is as nice as you can be. Justin Thomas is as nice a man as you can be. I promise you, when they're coming down the stretch, they are thinking, Justin and Jordan are thinking of one thing and one thing only: get my butt to the 18th green to tap in for a win so I can hoist the trophy. The money, the accolades, all the things that come with it are secondary at this point in these guys' career. They have all the money in the world. Tony Finau knew he needed to win. He got the job done. And maybe, just maybe, this propels him to do things that everybody thinks he's been able to do the last 5 or 6 years that he hasn't been able to accomplish. I don't think there's anything wrong with any athlete ever trying to go grab the bull by the horns and get a win. I've never had an issue with that. I think it's awesome to watch it. And then, by the way, when they come off, Froggy, they can be as nice as they can be, congenial, conjugate beautiful sentences verbally, and have a nice time with the media, whatever they want to do.
Right.
But when they're playing, that's their domain, that's their stage. So let them go, let them get after it.
I agree. I mean, this week at the BMW Championship, it is round 2 of the FedEx Cup Playoffs. So with Tony winning last week, he's pretty much secured his way in to Atlanta next week. And that's what everybody's jockeying for this week. And the tour's returning to a golf course that I don't, and one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you is it favors who? We haven't played this golf course before. Right. And so who do you think this golf course favors this week?
I was talking to a couple of guys yesterday on the course, and the answer is no one.
Really?
It's going to be a golf course where the players are going to score. It's not going to be the Bob Hope. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, not that the Bob Hope's easy, right? It's the Bob Hope, the American Express. Sorry, I apologize. Right. I'm showing my age there out in the California desert. Jesus, Froggy, holy cow. But anyway, it hasn't been the Bob Hope in 20 years. So it's not going to be like the California desert in January, where the greens are completely perfect and the conditions are perfect and these guys are just scoring at will.
Right.
But I do think you better get to 20 under par this week. If you have length, it'll help, but it's not a long golf course. It's really hilly. You better be in good condition because it is not an easy walk for these guys.
Right.
But if you've come to this point, Froggy, there's 69 guys in the field, not 70, because Patrick Reed isn't 100% healthy and he's not able to be there this week. So the 69 guys who are here this week, whether you missed the cut last week or not, you're playing some good golf if you're here at this point in the game. So to me, with the golf course not being incredibly long and with the weather conditions being hot and humid and the golf course being soft because of the weather, and also the fact that you're going to need to put your foot down on the pedal and score, I think it's a wide open ball game. I think it's going to be a really cool week for fans to watch. People in Baltimore haven't seen PGA Tour golf in 60 years.
I know, it's crazy.
60 years. So they're jacked up here. They're ready to come out and support this event. It's a good sports town. The Orioles have lost 19 in a row, by the way, at the time we've spoken. So plenty of good seats available at Camden Yards, but those people will be at Caves Valley this week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So the tour is returning, to, like you said, almost 60 years since they've had a tour event there. And does it even it out, since it is a place that nobody really is going to be familiar with? Does that make it a more even playing field for everybody?
One of the things I get asked all the time, Froggy, is, are these guys really as specific as they sound like they are on TV? 141, no, 142, 141, no, 142. Yeah, that's how specific they are because they don't play golf the way we do. We just say, 141, give me a 9, and I'll just try to hit it.
Exactly.
These guys are going here, 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 here. They're so specific. So when they're not familiar with a golf course, it's an uneasy feeling for these guys. So they're going to feel it out these couple of days for practice rounds. And I expect as the week goes on, they'll become more comfortable on the golf course. So the answer is yes. When you are not familiar with the golf course, some guys that come here for outings here and there, everybody knows about Caves Valley, but not everybody has seen Caves Valley, which is one of the reasons it's such a cool thing that they're here this week for the world to see this great golf course. It's hosted a U.S. Senior Open before. It's hosted a Palmer Cup. There are 4 guys in the field this week who were in the Palmer Cup in 2007. This is a junior event, an amateur event, and that has no indication. They have no recollection of that from 14 years ago. But yeah, the lack of familiarity is an uneasy thing for the tour players, Froggy, and it's also something that evens it out for everybody in the field this week.
Right. You are listening to the Stripe Show podcast brought to you by OnCore Golf. OnCore designs high-speed performance golf balls for players of all skill levels and swing speeds. Get fitted for your perfect golf ball now at OnCoreGolf.com. So as we continue the FedEx Cup playoffs, last week, in the middle of the tournament, while John Rahm is leading the golf tournament and then at the time was leading the FedEx Cup playoffs, he was extremely critical of the FedEx Cup playoff system. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think it needs more tweaks?
The only issue I have with the FedEx Cup playoffs now is I don't love the way they do the Tour Championship next week. I don't love the staggered.
And that was his argument.
Yeah, I don't love the staggered start. I don't mind. Look, I think they ought to start from scratch next week. If you make it to the top 30 and you're 30th or you're first, you've had a great season. Now let's go play for the whole thing. You can be a wild card like your beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneers, win 3 road games and go win the Super Bowl against the favored Chiefs. Right. You can be the Giants and be a wild card and go play the undefeated Patriots and get the victory. There is no discounting the Buccaneers and Giants victories in those Super Bowls because they were wild cards and didn't have better seasons than the teams they played in the playoffs and 100%. Also in the Super Bowl. Golf's different than football and the other sports. I understand that, but I still think it ought to be treated the same. Up until this week, do whatever you want. Give the advantage to all the guys who played better in the regular season. 125 last week, knock it down to 70 this week. If you played well throughout the season, you got your hiccup last week. Colin Morikawa, Kevin Kisner, there are guys like that. Love those guys. I'm not picking on them, but they didn't play great last week.
Right.
They didn't help their cause coming into this week, but because they had better regular seasons than most, they made it to the BMW Championship. I think that should also take place going into next week. Again, let's say Morikawa doesn't play well this week. There's no cut here this week, but he doesn't play well this week and finishes in the bottom tier. Well, he still deserves to be at the Tour Championship based upon his entire body of work through the regular season. However, next week, Froggy, to me, the 30th guy is every bit as important as the first guy. And leading up to next week, I understand the system and how it works, and making sure that the best players get into the Tour Championship at East Lake, and making sure that the regular season counts. It should count. It should count for a lot, and it matters. But next week should be a sprint to the finish. 4 days, get after it for the whole shebang, in my opinion.
Right. Well, John Rahm's argument was I could win every single event in the season, win the first 2 events in the playoffs, and then the guy in second place can outscore me by 2 shots in the last event, and he's the champion. That doesn't seem right. And I know that that's a very extreme look at it. That's not going to happen. But if that did happen, is it really a true champion? And I think you're exactly right. I think everybody that makes it to Atlanta should have a chance. Because if you're 30th in Atlanta, you don't automatically win if you win the golf tournament, correct?
Right. And let's face it, you really don't have a shot if you're 25th to 30th. You really are up against it, being 10 shots back. At the very least, I think they ought to cut the staggered start in half. But to me, as a golf fan and as a sports fan, it should be, look, the Super Bowl, the Final Four. I mean, there are a lot of examples. In hockey and baseball, and basketball, they have 7-game series, 5-game series, sometimes in baseball, they shorten it up a little bit. But when you're playing for the title in a one-and-done scenario, and the best scenario I can think of is the Final Four or the Super Bowl. Wild card teams win, lower seeds win titles in the NCAA tournament. Is it random? It's more random, I guess, than a 7-game series, but that's what 4 days is for. And 4 days in golf, to me, takes care of that. The best player next week, to me, should win the FedEx Cup because they earned the right to get there next week. And yes, the number 1 seed is benefiting from having a staggered start, but I think you risk a runaway, which you don't want. Dustin Johnson sneaky ran away and hid last year. And also, you're taking away the lower half, the lower third of the field next week, and I don't love that. I think if you've earned your way to East Lake, Froggy, you deserve the right to play the best that week and be the champion. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, Tiger Woods would have another FedEx Cup if it was set up like that, because as you know,
that was the Justin Rose year.
Yeah, number 80. He got number 80 there, but he just did. If Justin Rose, I think if he 3-putted that last hole or didn't make birdie there, I think Tiger would have won both. He would have won the FedEx Cup. And actually, Billy Horschel, a friend here on the podcast, he was in the mix at one point too. If something had happened, he was in the mix to win the FedEx Cup. He would have been his second one. So
I just don't want anything goofy to happen. And I think that when you have a scenario in sports, and this is the only one that I can think of in sports that has a staggered start like that, when you have a scenario like they have in place next week, Froggy, man, aren't you running the risk of something goofy happening? And if something goofy happens, if it would have been the Tiger Woods year, come on, man. Imagine him not getting his 80th win because of something goofy with scoring. I just think that they're risking too much.
Right.
And also, the integrity of the competition, you can go there, blah, blah, blah. But to me, when you start a golf tournament, everybody starts at 0. Everybody starts at even par, and that's the way it should be. And,
sprint to the finish.
I think so. I think it'd be really, really cool if they did that. But, I'm not in charge, man. I'm
right. Me either. Thank goodness. So when we're done with the FedEx Cup, we are going to move on to the Ryder Cup, and the Ryder Cup talk has just been, crazy lately. So I think right now the points are set. We've got Colin, DJ, Bryson, Brooks Koepka, JT, and Finau. Those 6 are in. Tony Finau played his way into the 6th spot last week with the victory. So now we've got the captain's picks coming up. And because of what happened with Billy Horschel back when he won the FedEx Cup and went on the run, he didn't make the FedEx Cup team. They've moved that picking to now after the Tour Championship. Who do you think are the guys that are most likely to get picked when Stricker makes his picks for the Ryder Cup?
I think Schauffele's automatic. I think Spieth is automatic.
Okay.
I think Patrick Reed, if he's healthy, is automatic.
Okay.
And we're what are we, 4 weeks away?
Yeah.
4 weeks away. So Patrick should be healthy by then. I think Cantley is an automatic pick. So I think there are 2 picks that are still available. I think Harris English deserves a pick.
Absolutely.
So that would be 5. And then you get into some tricky spots there.
Yeah, I mean, your next guys are Berger, Simpson, Scheffler, and
Right.
Horschel.
Yeah, you've got experience in a Webb Simpson.
Right.
You've got a FedEx Cup champion who got completely screwed in 2014 when he won the BMW and the Tour Championship and wasn't able to go over to Glen Eagles to help the Americans try to win the Cup.
And Billy Horschel.
And Billy's in the mix. I mean,
right.
So I think that at the end of the day, look, man, I'm a big believer that let's get some fresh blood in there and let's get some guys who have some stones. The retreads don't do it for me. However, if I was the captain, that'd be a tough decision.
That last pick is tough.
It's tough because you want experience, but you also want to, get somebody in there who's going to. Scotty Scheffler's going to play in multiple Ryder Cups. Guys like that. To me, I would take Simpson, Horschel, or Kisner because I think they have the biggest stones. I think they've been in the fray. Kisner didn't play well last week, missed the cut at the Northern Trust coming off that win at Greensboro. I think if he would have played well last week, I think not a lock, but I think he would have been someone who would have been highly, highly, highly considered. So he needs to play well this week and next. Billy Horschel should have been on that team in 2014, not just because he's friends with me and you, Froggy, but because he deserved to be on that team. So,
absolutely.
And Webb Simpson is a major champion, a player's champion, and he's played in these things multiple times. So it's a tough one. I would probably go with those 5. And then to me, it would be let's see who's playing the best this week and next week between Horschel, Kisner, and Webb Simpson.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think that Stricker, Furyk, and Zach Johnson, they're all, talking amongst themselves, but at the same time, they're all watching. They're all trying to see exactly who are those last 1 or 2 picks when they go to fill in. And obviously team chemistry is going to be something to be discussed with Brooks and Bryson being on the same team. We have not seen them paired together. Even by chance, I just kept hoping someday we'd get them paired together. Hasn't happened. So there's a team chemistry issue there to solve as well.
I think it's going to be really interesting how Stricker, Furyk, and Zach Johnson, 3 wonderful guys.
Right.
They don't. This is not a disparaging remark at all. I love Tom Watson. I mean, Tom Watson's one of the biggest hard asses of all time.
Right.
Steve Stricker, it doesn't have that gear. Steve Stricker's more like Tony Finau than he is like Tom Watson. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. You got some big personalities in that room.
For sure.
You got a lot of egos in that room. You can't be great without having that ego, that confidence. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle all of that. Team chemistry, I've always thought is a little overblown in a Ryder Cup and a President's Cup situation. I don't know this year, man. This year, there can be some tricky pairings there for the captain. Sunday singles, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. But Friday and Saturday, morning and afternoon, it's going to be interesting to see who's playing with whom.
How do you like our chances this year?
Our meaning the Americans?
Americans.
Yeah, you see, that's a nasty rule at NBC and Golf Channel. It's not ours and theirs. It's not us and them. It's Americans. It's USA. It's red, white, and blue.
How do you like Team USA's chances this year?
Man, I got to get in that Ryder Cup mode, Froggy, or else I'll get yelled at by Tommy Roy. I don't want to do that. Look, I've always thought in the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup, if the Americans play well, they're going to win. Because top to bottom, they're better.
Right.
But in the Ryder Cup, unlike the President's Cup, you have 4 matches going on, not 5, and you have 4 players sitting out each session, and then Sunday everybody plays. So you don't have to hide anybody. I hate the word hiding, but you don't have to play 4 guys. So if you happen to have 4 guys not playing well, then it should be relatively easy to make your pairings as far as each session goes. So having said that, look at the list of players there. The 12 players on the American side, if they play well, should win, I think. And I think they'll win. And I think that the Americans will step up. I think the Europeans will also play well. But I think that overall, over the course of the 3 days, Froggy, if the Americans play well, they should win.
It's crazy how Ian Poulter just seems to make every single putt. And I don't know if he is qualified by points, but you have to think if he's not qualified by points,
he's a pick.
He's an automatic pick. Because that guy, I mean, it's like putting into a garbage can when he's in.
I have no inside intel. I have not spoken to Ian. I've not spoken to the captain, Padraig Harrington. But Froggy, if Ian Poulter is not there Whistling Straits in September, then you and I should just retire and go to the beach.
I agree with you 100%. You know, it's crazy when you see now, I know we have a lot of PGA Tour events, but in your opinion and what you have seen amongst players, as far as the importance of tournaments to win, you've got the 4 majors, but then we've got the players. We've got the Ryder Cup. We've got the FedEx Cup. We've got the WGC events. We've got the President's Cup. Where do these fall as far as importance to players and where they schedule and where they try to peak at the right times for?
That's a good question. Look, the majors are the biggest events in golf. The Players is the biggest PGA Tour event on the schedule.
Right.
The WGCs are seemingly going away, but they have always had tremendous fields the last, 20 years or so. And then you've got the FedEx Cup, which is becoming bigger every year, has become what the tour wanted it to become when it started in 2007. And as I was telling Billy Horschel last night when I saw him, it's a resume thing. When you talk about someone's resume, Froggy, for instance, you just heard me say Fred Couples has 15 wins, 2 Masters and 2 Players. Well, the FedEx Cup is now on that list.
Correct.
You have your win total, your major total, your Players total, and your FedEx Cup total. That's the stature that the FedEx Cup has risen to, and it deserves to, because it is a very, very big deal in golf. I think everybody always wants to play for their country or their continent if you're from Europe, and I think the Ryder Cup is a massive event in golf. Happens every other year, hopefully. Happens every other year, and it's something that's always on the minds of players, along with the President's Cup as well, if you're from the United States or if you're from countries outside of Europe. But, they all mean something. They all matter. You try not to tier events, going back to the original thing with Tony Finau was that first win a B event. I don't like saying that.
Right. It's still a PGA Tour event.
It's still a PGA Tour event.
Best players in the world are playing.
Exactly. You have to beat the best players in the world. But, the majors, the Players, the FedEx Cup, the Ryder Cup, to me, are the biggest events in all of golf.
I agree with you, actually. So before we let you go, we got to get into some Tiger talk, because you have been front row witness to some of the greatest things we've ever seen in golf. And so you called Tiger's 80th at Atlanta, which I think there was a time many people, including Tiger himself, had said it might not happen again. And you were there on the 18th green as that crowd happened in the fairway behind him and Rory. Can you just explain what that was like, what the sound was like?
It was, I think the loudest thing I've ever heard in golf was the 2016 Ryder Cup at Hazeltine. If you remember the scene with all the fans circled around those last few holes, and it was the most raucous I've ever heard anything in golf. It was sports loud, not golf loud. For one moment in time. And I make fun of Atlanta as a sports town because I always just joke it's just a soft sports town. They care about the Georgia Bulldogs more than they care about anything else, and that's college. And college always is rowdier than professional. But that moment, Frog, man, oh man, watching those people come down 18, watching them all gather around with McIlroy and Tiger trying to finish, and then just the constant roar of, Tiger Woods, that kind of stuff, and
Wow.
just the incredible emotion and cheers, seeing him win for the first time since 2013, having it be his 80th, which, like birthdays, victories in sports, it's not like it's any different than 79 or 81, but it's just
Right.
when zeros and fives are involved,
Right.
you better step up and get your wife a nicer present. And it's in Tiger's case, it was his 80th. It had been a long time. It was at a big event, at a big venue. And no matter what he does, it's amplified. And man, it was loud. It was emotional. I'm a crier by nature, Froggy. I
Hmm.
don't know if you are. I mean, I
Hmm.
cry when the national anthem is sung well at a sporting event. I'm terrible.
Right.
And Tiger got emotional, which doesn't happen often. He knew the enormity of the moment. And I just wanted to make sure that, we asked him, 3 or 4 pertinent questions that were not what was it like to hit a 6-iron to a back right pin from
Right.
184 into a cross breeze, 3 or 4 kind of meaningful questions, that would elicit a great response from him. And he went there with us. And it was a special, special moment. And it was, to say the least, it was very, very cool to be standing there. It was amazing to be in that arena there, watching him, soak in the fans. He doesn't do that often,
Right.
especially early in his career. He allowed them in, and I thought it was a wonderful thing to see. And he gave it back to them, which is also a nice give and take when an athlete of his stature does that. It was amazing. It was a thrilling moment, no question about it.
How many Tiger victories have you been present for?
Someone asked me that like 2 weeks ago, and I never looked it up. But he has 82 wins. I've been doing this at the Golf Channel and NBC since 2001. So,
Been
you
around for a
know,
lot of them.
probably a lot of them. Some of them before I started working at NBC, I worked a lot of Golf Channel events that were on CBS, so I was still at them. But as far as being in the booth or being in the tower or being the guy interviewing him on the green, it's been a lot, man. I mean, look, as I said, we're only as smart as the people we speak to, and you're only as good as the event that's taking place in front of you.
Right.
And when you're at a Tiger event, it's special. There's nothing you can say otherwise. He's one of the 2 best players in the history of the sport. He's the most famous athlete on the planet, even today, and he hasn't played,
Right.
since his unfortunate car accident. And to be in this sport, to do what we do for a living as a sportscaster, and to be able to witness some of those things in person, like calling the 82nd. I've joked with Tiger before. There are only 2 guys who do it for a living for the most part on network television: Dan Hicks, who's our guy, and Jim Nantz, who's on CBS. And here
Hmm.
I am with Frank Nobilo in the booth at the Zozo Championship as he's trying to tie the all-time wins record with Sam Snead with 82 in Tokyo in 2019. And I've joked with Tiger before, when you're a grandfather and you're just sitting there and you roll out the DVD or the VHS or whatever tape they have, back in the future in 40 years, and I'm the clown who's calling your 82nd win, I apologize in advance.
Are you ever nervous, Steve, when it's over and you're understanding the enormity of what's happening, and he's approaching you after that putt? Are you ever nervous, or have you done it so many times now that it's no longer nerves?
Well, I think you get nervous, but as I tell my kids, or I tell anybody who asks that question, to me, look, I played high school football and basketball. I never got to college, and I wasn't good enough to go play,
Right.
beyond high school. To me, there are only 2 ways to handle nerves. You either embrace them or you fight them. And to me, when you get nervous, that means you care. And I
Hmm.
think that, look, as I left the tower to go down to the ground to do the Tiger interview on Sunday at Eastlake when he won for the 80th time with all those people around going crazy, you know, Hearing, by the way, is the most difficult thing because you can't hear because there's so many people there. So as I was going down there, I remember thinking, to be fair, I remember thinking, your heart's pumping a little bit and you're a little bit nervous, but you're sports nervous. It's not a, nerves like you've never been there before. It's a sports nerves, which is a good thing. And I remember thinking, it's a big spot,
Right. And you're selfishly pulling for him to pull this off for both for him and for yourself.
Well, I mean, you just want to see the best out of athletes, and you want to see the best moments take place when you're doing them. You want Michael Phelps to win because you're the one calling it. You want Tiger to be the guy who finishes first in that scenario. Not that you're rooting against Rory or anybody else in the field, but it's Tiger Woods, and he's going to win his 80th, and you have the chance to be the guy who interviews him. So, yeah, I've been nervous. I remember telling my mom one time, the first time I ever did the Olympics, the first time I was ever on TV at an Olympic Games, I remember thinking, man, there are a lot of people watching this. And I got nervous. My mom was like, what was that like? She goes, I was home watching, and I was so nervous. It's a good thing to be nervous, Froggy. You know that. Whether you're on the first tee with your buddies and you're playing a $5 Nassau,
it means you care.
You've got millions and millions of people watching on television and you're about to interview Tiger Woods. You don't want to screw it up. You want to ask the right questions. You want to make sure you're not part of the story and that you elicit the best answers from a guy like Tiger or whoever else is winning. And you want the audience to be able to walk away and go, okay, I just watched him compete for 4 hours. Now I'm going to hear him talk about it. And hear about how important it is to him. I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I wasn't thinking about all that as I ran onto the green. But, man, it was fun, man. If you don't like being in those situations, it's like Finau. Finau can't close. Finau this, Finau that. Let me tell you something. He loves being in the fray. He loves being in the moment. And Monday was his time. Right. It hasn't been his time other than Puerto Rico on Monday. For someone like me or someone like you who's doing what we do for a living, if you don't enjoy being in the fray in big spots, then you're doing the wrong thing.
You shouldn't be doing it.
You're doing the wrong thing.
Agree 100%. And maybe you've already answered this question, but through your 20 years of doing this, what would you say your most memorable moment is that you will always cherish the most?
Oh, man. Well, the interview on the 18th green when he won his 80th in front of, those thousands of people going bananas. Was as cool as it gets. Being the guy who was, it's a privilege to do what we do. It's not a right. To be in the booth, to be the play-by-play guy calling what could be his last ever win on the PGA Tour, to tie Sam Snead for the all-time wins record, to be the voice of record on that, is pretty cool. Not to Tiger you to death, but when he came back from his injury at the Bahamas, I happened to be the guy in the booth that Thursday for the Golf Channel, when he hadn't played in 300 some odd days.
Right.
That was just a December golf tournament, end of November golf tournament. It was the Hero World Challenge in the Bahamas. Yeah. But because it was him and his return, that was a big deal. I remember interviewing at Doral like 16 years ago, Tiger and Roger Federer, when they were both number one in the world at the same time. And Roger's agent saying they had never been interviewed on television together before. Wow. Any chance I can get a copy of that? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, I've been so lucky, Frog. I mean, honestly, it's, I don't know how to explain to you how lucky I've been to be able to be there for some of the greatest moments in the last 20, 21 years in this sport. I've done a lot of other sports, but golf has been the one calling card for the last 20, 21 years. And it just so happens to be in an era where Tiger has elevated the sport to heights that it's never seen before. And we're all just lucky to be a part of it. But those are three or four that I could think of off the top of my head.
And by the way, never, ever worry about tigering me to death. You could talk about Tiger from now until the end of time. And I find what he's done amazing. I'll never give up on him. I know right now he's in a spot that's probably not lending itself to us seeing him play professional golf again, and that's really not what's important. Him being a
Right.
father and being there for his children and his family is much more important, and I get that. But I'll never give up on him. I'll never say never. You never know what we may see again, but he really has provided us, and obviously you firsthand, some front row moments that are just mind-boggling, the things that he can accomplish. And I think other tour players, he even sometimes shocks them at the things he's able to accomplish.
Yeah, I think it'd be a mistake to give up on Tiger.
Yeah.
Do I think he's going to be able to compete at the highest level again? Who knows? I'm not a doctor, but any sports fan is rooting for athletes to perform, and it'd be nice to see him be able to put the peg back in the ground and compete against the best players in the world. But to give up on him, as we've seen in the past, would be a big mistake.
It's not smart. It's like the people who wrote Tom Brady off when he had that bad season in New England and they let him go.
Enough with your Buccaneers.
He's proved them all wrong too. And we hope we do it again this year.
Enough. Take it easy. My God. How many can you win, for God's sakes?
You know what? He's been to 10. He's got 7. I'm hoping we make 11 and 8 this year. Let's hope.
Between the Lightning and the Bucks, I'm sick of Tampa Bay.
Steve, thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate it. Your stories are great. And once again, this week you will see Steve. He will be covering this week and next week the tail end of the FedEx Cup Playoffs at the BMW at Caves Valley this week, and then next week in Atlanta at the Tour Championship. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we will see you on TV on the 18th green the next 2 weeks.
My pleasure, bud. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Steve.